The first map will be none other than Bel'Shir Beach, the winter version.
Be careful with that, man.
I know, we have a mute button, and I go to, like, press the keyboard, like...
Yeah, that is the wrong place for a mute button because...
It's so inconvenient.
It's actually 2 mute buttons. We have one for myself where I can be like, sorry, guys. And I can mute Frodan with the other one.
Oh, why would you ever mute me?
I would never do that. That's why it's super far away from me.
That's... Enough people mute me on their own streams. You don't need to mute me too.
Oh, no, nobody would mute you. Anyway, let's go ahead and introduce the characters over here. In the bottom right-hand corner, as the orange Terran, we have Evil Genius's PuMa.
On the top left, we have Bratok, the red Russian Terran player, and he is 0 and is it 0 and 2 or 0 and 3?
I think it's 0 and 3 right now, but don't quote me on that.
Okay. Yeah, Braddock's he's been struggling, and I mean honestly, his TVT is not bad. It's at 66%.
Yeah.
And he's never played PuMa, but he's actually beaten some pretty notable people. You know, he beat Thorzane at the Gathering, even though he lost to Lucifer in the finals. And Thorzane, his TVT is pretty strong. I mean, that's how he won DreamHack Stockholm.
No, that's the thing. Braddock showed amazing skill throughout NASL Season 1 and Season 2. Season 2, he made it to the finals. So he definitely has skill. He has the potential to play at this high caliber, top tier play. It's just he hasn't been able to connect the dots, starting us off. It's unfortunate, but he did the same thing in season number 2 and then came back with like a ridiculous 5-0 wins or something like that. And from there, he just completely dominated the scene and was able to qualify for top 16. So hopefully we'll see the same thing here coming into match number 1 for today.
I like how these players are opening up with their scouts, checking corners to see any kind of proxy shenanigans. I was on PuMa's screen and Braddock, and they were making sure to be diligent in how they approach this matchup. And Bel'Shir Beach is a pretty interesting map for TVT, Andre. What can we really expect, especially between these 2 players?
Well, positioning is key, much more so on this map than any other map. And not only that, we want intelligence. Big points of contestation are going to be right directly outside this 3rd/4th. I don't know what you want to call it, but right here, this is a really big place where you kind of have to defend this area. And the main reason is because you can drop into the main and do severe damage. You can actually siege up and slow push that main, or you can easily go into the natural. Both are very accessible. So both these players will be thinking about that in their mind. How will they go about defending those areas? That's the big question.
We do see PuMa is opening up with a Reaper. He's going to hit the Watchtower. I think Braddock saw it with his SCV that was retreating, but we see a pretty classic Reaper expand, so slightly more delayed compared to Braddock's no gas expand. But in the end, he's going to get a pretty decent scout off, and PuMa wants that information, especially on Bel'Shir Beach, a map that you can one-base pretty easily on. And PuMa is arriving now. He's going through the front. What do you think about this? A lot of players sometimes try to jump the cliff, but directly engaging on the supply depot.
PuMa's going to lose his initial Reaper.
Oh, wow.
It is kind of suspect to do a move like that. What's the purpose of the Reaper if you're just going to do pressure in the front? A lot of times you put the Reaper out and keep it alive just to say, stay in your base for quite a long time or keep units defensive so you have no potential to actually push out in that early game stage. Not only that, you want to get a good scout and you want to see what's going on. And that Reaper wasn't able to accomplish anything. I have to say, Reapers on Bel'Shir Beach are kind of weird. I wouldn't normally go with that opening. But
there's not that many escapes at the base.
Exactly, so yeah.
There's not as many opportunities to run compared to a map like Shakuris or anything. But
the entry points are kind of weird. You don't get to consistently get into your opponent's base if they have a wall. So that's the big reason why I'm like, why are you going to Reaper on this map in particular? But if you ask Ben Nicole, a.k.a. Mr. Bitter, he would say, Andre, shut up. That's exactly what PuMa wanted to have happen.
That's true. I mean, Braddock, he feels pretty comfortable as well. Not only because snow reflects the motherland of Russia, but also because he opened up a little bit on the greedier side compared to PuMa and is completely okay. And PuMa had to burn a scan also because he didn't get any information with his Reaper. And now has to see what his opponent's up to. But he sees pretty standard stuff. 3 barracks and a tech.
It is interesting right now. Normally you go slightly faster reactor. You can see a lot of gas was saved up for Braddock. You can actually get those 2 reactors a little bit earlier. It's just very minor, but that will affect his Marine count going on a little bit by, I think, approximately 2 Marines. So I guess it's not that big of a deal, but normally you do really streamline that process. So it was just something interesting to note. Originally, I was going to say he's saving up gas for some reason. I don't know why, but I think it was just a mistake right there.
We see PuMa grabbing a very early +1, and we have seen games like this in the past in TVT, most notably with the Muslim, who loves getting early +1. No surprise, his teammate PuMa also going for a similar strategy. And we've seen, especially if you lean towards this biocentric style, how upgrades can provide you very key times, especially if you want to push. So I like that, you know. And Andre, you're very vocal about getting upgrades, especially if you go for a bio kind of style.
Yeah, upgrades are probably one of the most important things in every single matchup, TVP, TVT, TVZ. You see that happening so much, and the main reason is because that little change affects your DPS dramatically. If you're dealing if you're dealing 6 damage, that extra +1 does another, what is that, 18%, 17%, something around there. So it's a dramatic increase in your effectiveness for all your Marines. So why not get it? Now, that's a big problem for Braddock right now, because he doesn't look to be getting a +1 anytime soon. Both players are going towards that medevac tech, so they're looking pretty nice. But PuMa just has that extra little advantage with the +1 attack.
Well, not to mention he also has combat shields finished.
Yeah.
Braddock just starting his. And he's going to get a lot of information just be going to the watchtower. PuMa sees the Marine, doesn't have any upgrades, also doesn't have combat shields. So PuMa, he's the one who probably feels pretty safe as well. Yeah. But Braddock, let's see what he is up to at this point. Pretty much just teching as normal, getting siege mode out pretty early compared to PuMa.
They are diverging slightly, both players. As we can see, PuMa is going very biocentric. On the other hand, we have Braddock saving up a lot of siege tanks. This is a pretty brutal push. He will be doing a 2-base attack at this point. I think he'll be setting up pretty soon. There it is. The first 2 siege tanks are coming on out.
Yeah.
And I just feel like this will be pretty effective, seeing as PuMa doesn't really have a lot of map control since both players are on similar techs. The economy wasn't too different. Braddock is taking his position uncontested, and when you're going bio like this, you need to be on the map. You can't be so defensive. PuMa actually is in a terrible position. How will he go and defend this area?
Well, he has the Marines in his main base to kind of prevent any elevator play, so he has that. But Braddock does have siege tank. Siege mode also momentarily just finished.
Oh.
So he will be able to push his way in, and PuMa, is he aware that this is coming whatsoever? In fact, he's trying to expand to the bottom center as well, so he's got to cover a lot of area.
That's a clear indication that he has no clue this is coming. Look at this. Braddock will get great position. PuMa needs to move on over here. One nice fire on a couple Marines will do a little bit of damage here. But PuMa, how is he going to actually attack this? He might lose a ton of SCVs from this.
Well, he does have another command center in production, but so he can always catch up in that ground. He's going to pull his SCVs to tank initial damage and have his Marines stim in. Now, keep in mind, they do have +1 in the advantage, but the ramp can also clump up some units, but it doesn't even matter. PuMa is going to stutter step his way to victory for that battle, and PuMa manages to take out the force. And how many SCVs did he end up losing there?
Let's go ahead and check it out. 18 SCVs. Here's the big problem. Braddock, look at how many units are back here. There's so many units just saved up. Now, normally when you want to do these pushes, you actually have everything rallied over here, so you have effectiveness, and you can snowball your advantage. Braddock did not do that, and we see him lose a pretty sizable amount of units. Now, I like what he's doing, just staying defensive here. He wants his opponent to overstep his boundaries, but I think PuMa is in a great position. Even though he lost so many SCVs, he got a head start in that orbital command center. It has positioning, and not only that, PuMa has map control. That's a very, very big point of an advantage that PuMa has overall.
PuMa did just keep the production on his command center, and he will have 3 orbitals. Keep in mind that a big factor coming into is that he eliminated the first 2 tanks from Braddock as well. So normally Braddock would have a 3 tank advantage, but only has 2 at this point. Oh, PuMa's going to try to elevator into the base here, but instead backs off when he sees a turret and is content with taking out supply depots. And I like it. He's keeping light pressure on Braddock, making sure that he doesn't feel comfortable, because at this point Braddock is just forced to mass and make his command center play very defensive. When
you do things like this, it delays the 3rd base of Braddock. PuMa is positioning his units, so it's like saying, hey, you need to spread out all of your units across these 2 bases. Well, if you're doing that, you really don't have the potential to go and take this outwards position to defend your natural and your 3rd base. You just don't have the capacity, don't have the units to defend so many areas. So I like what PuMa is doing, just exerting his control over the map, forcing his opponent to basically have a weakened economy. And now Braddock, look at this. He's finally fed up. He has to push out from here. He does have turrets in pretty good locations defending against any of those drops, but he desperately needs that economy advantage, or at least the economy evenness.
Equalizer.
Equalizer, yeah.
He needs to do something because PuMa is just going to jump way ahead. Despite the fact that he lost SUVs in the push, he was down about 10. He's already caught up. And keep in mind, he has an additional mule or scan at his advantage. And PuMa and Braddock seem to have a standoff here towards the eastern part of the map. Braddock did load up a drop, but it did fly over one Marine, so PuMa should be aware of that. And we might have ourselves a cold war of sorts across this bridge. Who will choose to push over? Will they even push over?
Both these players are in gridlock. It looks like PuMa did read that the Marine drop over here in the bottom left-hand corner was inbound for that third base, but I like what Braddock is doing, preparing the drop rather than trying to drop directly on top of the third. And, oh, actually Braddock will not have too much success over here because there are pretty good number of medevacs here. The medevac goes down instantly. Nice job, but this workaround, this might do a lot of damage, Frodan. Yeah,
he's got a huge Marine advantage. Picked off several, and Braddock is going to have to evacuate that immediately. His SCVs are in pursuit, and he doesn't have a good concave either with his Marines. PuMa, he didn't even wait for +2/+2 to finish, but it doesn't even matter. He has the Marine advantage and now has been able to whittle down the numbers. And Braddock, his drop in the bottom center is still kind of working. In fact, PuMa decides to clean up there finally. At the end of it, Braddock doesn't really have many Marines left, and he has actually almost the same amount of tanks as he does Marines.
I think the better choice would have been to take out these 3 siege tanks rather than contest the Marines. The Marines are very heavily upgraded. Not only that, they're pretty self-sufficient with just their medevacs, but if you remove the siege tank count off the field, you're actually giving your siege tanks a lot of momentum. They can actually do a ton of damage, and they don't care about the upgrades. You know, these Marines are 2-2, whereas Braddock's is only 1-1. He will be at this advantage for about 60 seconds more. So have the siege tanks do amazing amounts of fire, and you know, it basically negates that advantage or any advantage PuMa would have.
PuMa has 66 Marines to the 22 of Braddock, and his production is outrageous at this point, forcing another cancel in the third, and Braddock is not in position to defend it again. PuMa grabbing a very significant macro advantage. You can see in the supply. 180 to 140. PuMa has an incredible amount of initiative right now. He scans and sees that Braddock's not even protecting his natural. He might just run up here and take out everything of his production.
Oh yeah, 1 siege tank in position, but that's going to go down very fast. The Stim 2-2 Marines are just wrecking the base of Braddock. There's nothing that can be done. Braddock's going to tap out. GG. And PuMa, he's going to take it, man. Looking real good. I have to say, that was the best example of how placing your gas, I'm trying to explain this efficiently, placing your gas into those things that get you an advantage later on is a lot better than just investing it into gas that gets you like a slight advantage, but not so much. You really want to explode with that huge push and really commit your gas to that push, or don't do it at all. Because Braddock did this I want to curse, but I can't.
Half-hearted.
Half-hearted,
yeah,
thank you.
There you go.
Half-hearted attempt for that push, and it just didn't do nearly as much damage as he needed to. It's because he didn't have reinforcements keeping that alive, making it so the siege tanks would have multiple attacks. And once the first attack was cleared up, it's just PuMa had an amazing advantage, and Braddock was consistently behind in the upgrades, and it's just all because of the allocation of gas in that early game stage.
Strong positional play and advantage went to PuMa. He is up 1-0 in this series. And of course, it's a best of 3, which means we'll be back with our next game. Thank you so much to the sponsor of the series. It is Epson, for providing all kinds of projectors for NASL Season 3. We love you, Epson. Check them out at epson.com. Don't go anywhere. More action from Division 1 is coming up right after the jump.